You are finishing a reconciliation report when the numbers stop behaving the way numbers are supposed to behave. It's late afternoon in a quiet accounting office that exists mostly to keep small companies compliant with tax law. Your job is unremarkable. You verify invoices, track payroll liabilities, and make sure expenses line up with the ledgers that justify them. The work is methodical, predictable, and honest in a way the rest of the world rarely is. Numbers follow rules. If they don't, something is wrong. The discrepancy appears inside a transportation client's quarterly report, a shipping company that moves agricultural equipment between three ports. Nothing glamorous. Their entire yearly revenue barely touches $12 million. But a vendor account shows transfers totaling $94 million over the last 4 months. You assume it's a data error. You run the reconciliation again. The numbers are correct. Then you examine the structure of the payments. Hundreds of smaller transfers, each one carefully placed just below regulatory reporting thresholds. Each payment labeled as a maintenance contract, equipment lease, or freight surcharge. Someone is laundering money through this company. Not poorly, perfectly. You stare at the screen for a long time because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The pattern is deliberate. Whoever designed the system understands international banking law, cross-border compliance, and forensic accounting. You export the ledger to double-check it at home. That decision changes your life. 2 nights later, someone knocks on your apartment door. You assume it's a neighbor. It isn't. 2 men walk in without waiting for permission. They aren't loud or aggressive. They move with the quiet certainty of people who know exactly where they are and why. One of them places a printed spreadsheet on your kitchen table. Your spreadsheet. Every number you exported is there. You don't ask how they got it. You already know the answer. The older man points at the transaction chain. You notice the structure. You say nothing. He asks how long it took. You answer honestly. 40 minutes. He nods slowly, almost impressed. Then he explains something that changes the way you understand your profession. You think you discovered a crime. What you discovered is a system. The company you audited is not a shipping company. It's a financial corridor, one of many. Money flows through it from organizations that operate outside traditional law enforcement reach. Cartels, private militias, political figures who cannot move funds through official banks. The company exists to convert illegal revenue into legitimate assets. And your mistake was noticing how well the system works. You expect threats. Instead, he offers you a job. Your instinct is to refuse. But before you speak, he recites the address of your parents' house, your sister's workplace, and the elementary school your nephew attends. He says it casually, not as a threat, as information. You're good with numbers, he tells you. But what makes you valuable is that you understand systems. That means you can build them. The salary he offers is absurd. $600,000 a year to start, performance bonuses tied to volume. You ask what the job actually is. He answers in one sentence. You make money disappear. 3 weeks later, you stop working for legitimate clients. Your new office doesn't have a company name on the door. It's technically a financial consulting firm registered in Luxembourg. The ownership structure passes through 6 holding companies before it reaches anyone who matters. Your role is straightforward. Illegal money cannot simply be deposited into banks. Governments watch for that. Large transfers trigger reporting laws, audits, investigations. So criminal empires hire people like you. Your job is to make billions of dollars look like ordinary business revenue. At first, the numbers feel abstract. A cartel needs to move $48 million from drug sales into a real estate development fund. The money starts as cash deposits across dozens of banks. You convert those deposits into consulting payments, routed through technology firms in Singapore. The funds eventually emerge as equity in a hotel project in Lisbon. By the time investigators could trace the trail, the money has passed through 14 corporate entities across 5 jurisdictions. Legally speaking, it's nearly impossible to prove where it started. Your clients call that process cleaning. You call it engineering. Because laundering money at this scale is not just accounting, it's architecture. Every dollar needs a story. If $5 million appears inside a corporate account, regulators ask questions. But if $5 million arrives as the profit from a commodities trade between two legitimate companies, it becomes much harder to challenge. You learn to design those stories. A cryptocurrency ransom payment becomes the revenue of a logistics startup. Illegal mining operations in Africa become infrastructure investments in Southeast Asia. A shipment of narcotics becomes profits from agricultural exports. You don't invent the lies, you build financial pathways that make the lies believable. During your first year, you handle roughly $1.2 billion. You never see the cash. You see numbers, ledgers, contracts, investment portfolios. But the scale of the operations begins to reshape how you think about money itself. At normal accounting firms, $1 million is enormous. In your world, $1 million is noise. Your clients move wealth in volumes that rival mid-sized governments. Cartels alone generate tens of billions each year. Sanctioned politicians hide state budgets inside private foundations. Cybercriminal networks extort corporations for payments larger than some countries' annual tax revenue. All of it flows through financial systems. And now you help those systems hide. You justify the work in practical ways. If you refuse the job, someone else will take it. The money will move regardless. At least you're doing it with precision. Precision keeps investigations away. Investigations create chaos. Chaos gets people killed. You learn that lesson your second year. One of the shell companies inside your network gets flagged by a European anti-money laundering task force. The company only handles $11 million, but it sits inside a larger structure moving $600 million annually. If investigators unravel the structure, dozens of accounts could freeze. Your client calls immediately. He doesn't yell. He doesn't threaten. He simply asks how long it will take you to fix the problem. You have 6 hours. You dismantle the structure piece by piece. Assets convert to commodities. Commodities convert to derivatives. Derivatives transfer to holding companies in jurisdictions that don't cooperate with European financial authorities. By morning, the flagged company is empty. The money is already somewhere else. The investigation finds nothing. Your client transfers you a bonus equal to 2 years of your original salary. It's the first moment you truly understand how much power financial knowledge gives you. You don't run a cartel. You don't command armed men. But you control the bloodstream of their empire. Without accountants, criminal organizations cannot store wealth. Without stored wealth, they cannot survive. You become more than a technician. You become a strategist. Clients begin asking for advice before they earn the money you'll eventually hide. How should a cartel invest profits to protect them from seizures? How should a dictator move state funds before international sanctions freeze them? How should a cybercrime syndicate convert cryptocurrency into assets governments cannot trace? Each question forces you deeper into the system. Your job expands from hiding money to designing financial ecosystems that protect it for decades. You build investment structures disguised as legitimate corporations. You manage trust funds that hold billions under the names of intermediaries who have never committed a crime. You structure loans between shell companies so funds appear to circulate naturally through global markets. The goal is not invisibility. True invisibility is impossible. The goal is complexity. Complex systems discourage investigation. Regulators prefer easier targets. If a financial trail becomes too tangled to follow efficiently, they often abandon it. Your networks become labyrinths. Hundreds of companies. Thousands of transactions. Entire industries quietly funded by criminal capital that no one can conclusively trace. Years pass. You handle more money each year. $3 billion, then $7 billion, then $12 billion. The wealth you manage quietly becomes comparable to sovereign investment funds. You live carefully. No flashy purchases, no obvious luxuries. You understand the first rule of surviving in this world. Attention is dangerous, so you become forgettable. Quiet apartment, modest clothing. A life that appears ordinary from the outside. Meanwhile, the financial architecture in your head grows larger and more complex. You memorize corporate structures the way chess players memorize openings. You track billions of dollars without writing down the full map anywhere. Because if someone ever captures that map, dozens of criminal empires collapse. You sometimes wonder whether governments realize how fragile their financial systems are. Money laundering at this level does not rely on corrupt banks. It relies on legal ambiguity. Corporations are allowed to move money across borders. Investment funds can accept capital from thousands of sources. Trusts can obscure ownership. All of those legal structures exist for legitimate business. You simply use them more creatively. That creativity becomes your protection. But it also becomes your burden. Because every structure you build ties you more tightly to the organizations that depend on it. You cannot leave easily. You know too much. You control too much. If you disappeared tomorrow, dozens of networks would scramble to reconstruct the systems you designed. Some would fail. Failures cost billions. And people who lose billions rarely respond politely. So you continue. Years accumulate. Your reputation spreads quietly through circles that never appear in public. You are the accountant who can hide anything. Governments freeze accounts. You design new ones. Investigators track shell companies. You build deeper layers. Regulators rewrite laws. You find loopholes inside the new ones. Eventually, you stop thinking of yourself as someone who hides money. You think of yourself as someone who moves power. Because money is power. And power flows through numbers. Tonight, you sit at your desk reviewing a request from a client whose government will likely collapse within the next year. He wants to move $3.4 billion out of his country before sanctions arrive. You already know the structure you will build. Mining companies, commodity trades, infrastructure funds. By the time investigators understand what happened, the money will belong to dozens of legitimate investment vehicles spread across 4 continents. You start designing the structure. One transaction leads to another. Numbers connect into pathways. Billions begin to move. And somewhere far away, entire criminal empires breathe easier knowing their fortunes remain hidden inside the financial maze you built. You close the ledger when the structure is complete. Tomorrow, new money will arrive. New systems will need building. New risks will emerge. The world will continue chasing criminals with guns and prisons. But the real war happens inside spreadsheets. And you are still the one writing them.